fast before she started shaking and being sick. The smell of onions was instant. She wasn't trying to move away from the sick. She just lay there throwing up. She was laying it. I ran next door but one to Wenzel's house and hammered on the door. He opened it and gave me a roasting for waking him up and clipped me around the head. "Nan's sick," I stammered, and he sent me upstairs to sit with Mum. I found out later that my Uncle Clive was on his way home from the pub when he saw me run next door but one. I'd accidentally closed the door behind me, so he kicked the door in to check on his mum. The doors were old council and they only had thin plywood in a square across the bottom, so it was easy enough to kick it in then, and they climbed through. Clive explained it all to us afterwards, although we knew Clive had done this way before having to check on his mum. He was over 6 foot tall. He had to have shoes specially made for him. He wasn't particularly built, but he was tall and he had huge hands and feet, so taking a door out wasn't a big problem. Wenzel went around to see what was happening, and Nan was taken via ambulance to the hospital. I waited for Bernie, my blood mum, whilst my brother Jonathan, sisters Jodie and Caroline were in bed. Mum told me how Caroline had said she didn't like living with Leslie, and that she'd come back home. I knew Mum always wanted the family together, and she said it was better this way. Maybe one day I'd choose to come back too, she asked me softly. I'd always lived with Nan and Alan. They were like my mum and dad. I doubted it. I didn't like Wenzel. I didn't know why. I loved my real mum, but I hardly saw her. Maybe I smiled at my real mum. She always had a sad face even when she smiled. She was pretending. Mum made me fried egg and chips. I didn't like it or want it. I played with the Lego Technic and made a huge train which Mum helped me with. She sat close by me the entire time with her side touching my left arm. I'd missed her, and I hadn't realised it until that moment. But even then my mind was elsewhere. My vision went hazy. It was though someone had just removed everything I could see and replaced it with another scene. I saw someone pushing down our female's chest. I looked down to find my fingers were interlocking. I was pushing down hard on the cushion on my lap. I stopped after 5 or 6 compressions and was aware of where I was, and there was a feeling like electricity in the room. Mum was looking right at me. "You know," she said softly, with both her voice and eyes. I didn't have time to respond. The front door opened and Wenzel walked in with a bunch of flowers. He was wearing blue jeans and a white shirt with his white trainers on. Most noticeably, he had a little bit of spittle falling from his lip. I screamed, "Ah!" as I brought my arms down several times on top of the train set in front of me. It took Wenzel and Bernie to hold me down. I was in tears. "She's gone, she's gone," Wenzel said breathlessly.